is so unbelievable.
And the 2023 AP Rookie of the Year is...
You'd think it was the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. From almost being homeless...
At one point, I was going to place my kids in different places because I didn't want them to be homeless.
...to putting together one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen, here are 10 things you didn't know about C.J. Stroud. And it all starts with his father. Growing up, C.J.'s father, Coleridge Bernard Stroud III, was his best friend and the reason he started playing football. But when C.J. turned 13 years old, everything changed. In 2015, his father pled guilty to carjacking, kidnapping, robbery, and misdemeanor sexual battery, his fourth arrest, all centered around a drug-related incident that left C.J.'s father serving a 38-year prison sentence. And no one would have thought he'd take this route. He'd had previous run-ins with the law in the early 90s, but had since changed his life, became a minister, and was the primary moneymaker for the Stroud household. This incident forever changed the lives of his wife Kim and his 4 children. In fact, the Strouds almost became homeless. Still, C.J. holds no ill will against his father.
I actually have that with my dad. I got to talk to my dad a little bit this week, man. And I'm praying to God that something can happen, that he can get out. And
the Stroud family found ways to make it work. But that doesn't mean it was easy. The beginning of high school for CJ was a struggle. He didn't become a starter for the football team until his junior year, but the biggest obstacle had to be his living situation. CJ, his 3 siblings, Isaiah, Asmar, and Ciara, and his mother lived in Upland, California, a small city just outside of Los Angeles. Following his father's 2015 arrest, CJ's mother, Kim, was forced to work multiple jobs to make ends meet.
I used to work 12-hour days. I would do whatever I could just to keep a roof over my children's head, and sometimes food was very scarce.
She worked as a property manager, covering multiple locations, constantly downsizing homes because money was tight, moving the family a total of 4 times. And just as the Strouds were about to get evicted from one of their many condos, Kim got a job as a storage facility manager, where the family moved into. Yes, Kim and her 4 children moved right above the storage facility that she managed, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. And while CJ's mother worked day and night to keep a roof over his head, she also likely was responsible for his elite athleticism. Stroud is related to one of the greatest all-around athletes of all time. And it's not who you would think. On his mother's side of the family, the great Jim Thorpe is a distant relative, the legend who won pentathlon and decathlon gold medals during the 1912 Stockholm Olympics and played pro baseball and football, spanning over 2 decades. He didn't just play pro football either. He made the Hall of Fame. But it took more than genetics to get CJ to where he is today. In the age of social media, CJ has also become a product of modern technology. It's not that he was recording TikTok dances, but he used social media to become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Following his father's incarceration, CJ's family didn't have the money to send him to camps, get personal coaching, or even buy new cleats. So CJ used YouTube to become a better player. And it worked. He studied some of the best passers in NFL history, but primarily watched highlights of Drew Brees, and passing was just a small part of it. CJ also studied Brees' footwork, something that can be showcased in his game to this day. This film work turned CJ from a bench warmer to a starter in his junior year at Rancho Cucamonga High School, where he finally started to put his name on the map. But all this is nothing compared to how he ended his high school career, because the Elite 11, or American Idol of high school quarterbacks, is what truly put Stroud on the national radar. The Elite 11 brings together the best high school quarterbacks in the country every year, and it took a long time before this became a reality for Stroud, because he had tried many times. He first tried out at the Elite 11 LA Regional, following his promising first year as a starter at Rancho Cucamonga, going for 2,343 passing yards and 19 passing touchdowns. Despite this, Stroud was not invited to the Elite 11 Dallas Finals. But there was a catch. He was told to come back for the Bay Area Spring Regional for another shot. The problem was, traveling from Southern California to the Bay Area costs a lot of money, and cash was tight for the Strouds. But CJ and his mother knew that this was no opportunity they could afford to pass up, so they did whatever it took, and thankfully acquired the money to get CJ to the tryout.
of course, I have to appreciate my mother. My mother has definitely been the forefront of that. And she's done amazing things. She's sacrificed a lot for me. And I'm blessed to even have a mother like that.
And they were extra smart about the trip, combining it with a college visit to UC Berkeley, a school that had shown interest in CJ. And after completing an impressive tryout in the Bay, he was told he would have to wait again. This time until after the last evaluation at the Nashville Regional. His mother, Kimberly, said it best. After every camp, we were a little discouraged, especially when we went north. He thought he was the best, and they still didn't invite him. But soon after that, he got the call.
Mom, they invited me. Oh my God.
CJ was an Elite 11 finalist. He went off to Dallas and with a chip on his shoulder showed up as an unknown compared to big names like Bryce Young. Now, this is how the Elite 11 works. There are 20 finalists from the regional tryouts. That gets narrowed down to the Elite 11. Those 11 compete and one QB is named MVP. And guess who won MVP? That's right, the underdog, CJ Stroud. After that, everything changed. He became the third-ranked quarterback in the class of 2020, and schools like Oregon, Georgia, and Ohio State were now blowing up his phone. But while CJ might have proved the doubters wrong here, people still doubted his ability at every level. And going into the NFL, it was no different.
I'm not a test taker, so I play football.
CJ had to say this to NFL scouts after a horrendously low score in one NFL combine test.
I can process very well. I know I'm very smart. So you can't play at Ohio State and not be smart. And for the S2 test, man, it is what it is.
Despite being a two-time Heisman finalist and one of the best NFL quarterback prospects Ohio State has ever produced, there were still doubts about his ability because of the NFL Combine's S2 cognition test, an evaluation used to rate the mental abilities of players. Just for reference, other top prospects Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson scored 98% and 78%, respectively. Stroud scored just 18%. This score was considered incredibly terrible. But even the S2 cognition test co-founder Brandon Allies said to take the scores with a grain of salt. Some teams were scared off because of this, but others didn't seem to mind.
I will say that take some of those with a grain of salt. Again, I just don't see GMs in front offices saying, nah, we don't really like this guy, but his S2 is good, so let's take him.
And we know now that one of the teams that remained confident in CJ was the Houston Texans, who selected him second overall in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Texans were so confident in their new signal caller that they let him influence one of their draft picks in that very same draft. During the scouting combine, Stroud did tons of reps and got very close with Nathaniel Tank Dell, a receiver out of the University of Houston, who ended his college career with a 1,400-yard season. So, after Stroud was drafted, Dell texted him saying congrats, followed by tell him to come get me.
I think it was like after he got drafted, I saw him congrats. Then I was like, tell him come get me. I told him to tell him come get me and stuff like that.
Stroud simply responded, I got you. Trust me. And he did, because in the third round, with the 69th pick, Houston picked Tank.
The Houston Texans select Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver out of Houston.
That worked out pretty well, as he broke the Texans' rookie receiving yard record for one game with 149 yards against the Cardinals. He was also on pace to shatter the Texans' full-season rookie receiving record before getting hurt in Week 13. But it's not only Tank breaking records, because Stroud had arguably one of the best rookie seasons ever. A historic year that only got better as we saw more. CJ Stroud proved he was always ready for the big leagues. His 4,108 passing yards broke the Texans' franchise record for most passing yards in a rookie season, and not just by a little. This 4K mark was nearly 1,500 yards more than the previous record holder Davis Mills in 2021. Stroud also had the most passing touchdowns by a Texan rookie with 23. But Stroud didn't just break franchise records, he broke NFL records. This includes the most pass attempts without an interception to start an NFL career at 191, the most games of 350 passing yards by a rookie at 3, tied with Andrew Luck and Cam Newton, the most passing yards in one game by a rookie at a ridiculous 470 yards against Tampa Bay, and the most passing touchdowns in one game by a rookie with 5 in that same game against the Bucs. This game against Tampa Bay was called by many as the best performance by a rookie in NFL history. And it's hard to argue otherwise. While Stroud has made history on the gridiron to open his NFL career, history can be traced all the way back to just the origin of his name, Coleridge Bernard IV. Not only did this name come from his great-grandfather, it also came from an 1800s Greek philosopher. It's also been said this name came from the English philosopher Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And there's only one person who knows what the J stands for in CJ's name, and that's CJ himself. But growing up, he was better known as Cool Breeze, because according to his mom, CJ is a calm, cool breeze. He's real cool-headed. And you can definitely see that in his game. As a rookie, he looked like a 10-year vet, always poised and never rattled. But that calm nature isn't the only thing that has traveled with CJ throughout his football career. So has his number. At every single level of football, CJ has worn the same number, 7. And that's not by accident. CJ grew up idolizing Michael Vick, and that's the reason he originally wore it.
Yeah, I mean, growing up for me, one of the reasons I wore number 7 was because Michael Vick.
But while in college, a greater incident solidified the significance of number 7. After switching from 14 back to 7, Stroud wanted to carry on the legacy of another Ohio State great, Dwayne Haskins. Haskins passed away in 2022 at the age of just 24. And CJ said, "I tried to honor him as much as I could, man. I really appreciate what he's done for Ohio State and done for me." It's this humility and incredible backstory that has built CJ Stroud into the NFL star he is today.